Hope everyone's summer's going well. Today we're going to tackle Amazon Original Stories, the Getaway collection. The tagline for this collection is "Secrets follow you everywhere." I personally had interest in the series because it has both a Sally Hepworth in it and a Jess Lourey, but on its face, this Amazon Original Stories failed a little bit for me because one of the reasons I like them is they're short stories that I can listen to for free via the audio portion of my Kindle Unlimited, and both the Sally Hepworth story and the Jess Lourey story, for whatever reasons, were not available to listen to. I had to read them with my eyes. I have no idea why this is. If you go to the website and you look at the Kindle Unlimited thing, it has the little headphones next to it, which indicates I should be able to listen to it on my Audible app, or I should be able to use my Kindle Unlimited app and sort of push it out to do that. But once you actually download the book onto the Kindle Unlimited and open it up in the app, the little headphone thing goes away. Really frustrating. Amazon, you should fix that. After a little bit of research, I think the issue with the Jess Lourey one is that it's 0.05 of a series that she wrote, which is available for Kindle Unlimited but not available for audiobooks. So I'm thinking maybe the rights for this part of the audiobook got messed up with her other series. I have no idea what's going on with the Sally Hepworth story. And maybe for some of you this won't matter at all, and if so, great, just disregard this little preamble. But I feel like the Getaway collection is supposed to be beachy summer reads, or driving, traveling on the way to get to your vacation. And if you can't listen to the story, you cannot do that. So in some ways, I think having these audio versions available is more important in this series than other series. Across the board, since the premise of these Amazon originals is that you can listen to them as well as read them, you kind of need to have that option available. Let's evaluate the reads individually. Uncharted Waters by Sally Hepworth. I had really high expectations going into this. I've heard a lot of great things about Hepworth's work. I was really anticipating finally getting a chance to read her and was not disappointed. For me, it 100% reaffirmed that I am character forward. Not a lot, maybe nothing really happens in this story. Pretty much this wife goes alone into a small personalized cruise, comes back to husband, and life continues per normal. If you look at it from an overarching plot standpoint, literally nothing has changed. And just a single line or a small gesture, you get the idea of who they are and what they usually would or wouldn't do. For me personally, I felt like I knew other people who were like them in the real world. And from my perspective, I liked that we were on this very exclusive cruise. It's a super small luxury boat where only 8 people can go on this journey at a time, which means it's very expensive because everything from then on is a rich person's problem. And I just don't feel like rich people problems are very high stakes. This is a book about cheating, where the wife goes on this cruise alone because the husband last minute gets called back to work, and she is on the cruise with her husband's mistress, which is basically how she figures out that the husband was cheating on her. From there, she connects immediately to the mistress, and the two of them end up being in a romantic entanglement too. There's this interesting tension about how much people know about each other and when they know it. And the other thing that I found really interesting about this is I, like most people, think that cheating is #bad. I know it's a brave and stunning take, but I think this book does a great job really opening that question up. The mistress comes out, says that she's here to get over a broken heart, and she doesn't specify if she knew the man was married or if this was a reveal that ended their relationship or what. That's something we discover down the road. She leaves it open to be vulnerable and for people to judge her for being involved with the married man, which of course these people do. In fact, we have one person on the cruise who's highly judgy. And when people start sort of putting their own issues onto her, she says
I loved him. He was the one. If you met the person who was your one and they were married, does that mean you'd walk away from them? Would you not fight for them?
And I thought this was an interesting way to reframe the whole cheating, getting involved with someone married kind of moment. The obvious answer for a lot of these folks is,
but my husband, my wife, my whoever was not attached when I met them. That's how we started dating and eventually got married.
Another answer you can give is,
I don't even think about married people that way.
Which opens up the whole question of what do you do if you don't know they're married until after you've fallen in love with them? And as a whole, I think it's a great trap question. If you say, no, I would not have pursued them if they were married, it does call into question how much you love that person. If they're the one, don't you go through everything to end up together with them? In that one simple line, we got to the core of so much hypocrisy when it comes to society's perception of love and relationships and like love that transcends everything. Our main character, Ella, reaches out to her by saying that actually when she first met her husband, he was married and she did not let him go. Which ends up being sort of an ironic statement because we find out that this woman was also in a relationship with her husband. So at first we're like,
oh, is this a pattern? Is Ella the other woman so we don't have to feel bad for her?
More slow reveals, we realize that technically she met her husband when he was married, but his first wife died of cancer. And they were just like casual associates when that happened. It was 6 months after her funeral that they happened to meet again, spark up a conversation, and start dating. And likewise, we realized for Chloe, the mistress, that she didn't realize she was a mistress. And when she did, she broke off the relationship with Mac. So both of these women are a lot more innocent than they originally framed themselves, so I thought it was very interesting that they were willing to play the villain on this cruise and to push back on people who were sort of moralizing to them. This sort of like question about what will happen at the end of the cruise, what does this mean for their relationships, so on and so forth. Spoiler alert, Ella does decide to go back to Mac at the end of the vacation and pretend that nothing happened while on the cruise, but Chloe decides to text Mac pictures of her and Ella together. So each of them kind of has their own secret about their partner's affair and that their partner had an affair with the same person. As far as whether or not this fits into the collection's theme, Secrets Follow You Everywhere, I think it's a perfect introduction to the idea because Mac's like secret affair literally follows Ella onto this cruise. She has this affair, she has this sort of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas mentality, but that's not how Chloe feels about it, and she texts that information over to Mac, which means now both of them are stuck carrying the knowledge of each other's affair with the same woman like throughout the rest of their relationship, bringing us into His Happy Place by Zakiya Harris. This story took a really unexpected supernatural turn where we sort of like establish this relationship that she's gonna go camping with him, which is not her usual MO. Things seem to be going really well with both the relationship and actually with this camping experience when she falls asleep and starts experiencing strange things. And it's like very intense right away. I kind of wondered if she had been drugged, if he was playing a prank on her. Like, are we really gonna do straight supernatural ghosts, unexplainable things and just let that ride in what's otherwise highly grounded? I did not expect it to go that way or expect it to be left in that vein. I was sort of like expecting us to find out this was a carbon monoxide poisoning, maybe some kind of like exhaustion, something or other, possibly a psychotic break on her part. Maybe we'd come to find out they were foraging food and they'd foraged the wrong things and it caused hallucinations. Like, I had a wide range of what this could actually be other than supernatural because it just didn't seem like she'd experienced such vivid ghost sort of visions. It was asking for me to suspend a lot of disbelief, and I like a ghost story. Other than that, I had like some basic generic judgments of these characters, like they'd been dating a month and a half and she agrees to go on an isolated cabin in the woods retreat with him. Like, they have not been dating long enough. Overall, I think the story had solid construction. I cared about our main character. I believe this dude like was presenting one way and secretly another way, and it was only a matter of time before he like turned on her the way that he had turned on his last wife and maybe even killed his father. That said, the way that she handled it was also very odd since she decided to like drug him and set the cabin on fire to escape the man. It looked like she had kind of escaped suspicion in the morning and she could have driven back with him and never seen him again and been fine. Or she could have drugged him, taken the car and driven back with him and just never dealt with him again. I guess that's like not necessarily great because he's a murderer and you don't want a murderer just running around free or whatever, but I also don't want to become a murderer. Like, her going from loving this guy, considering a long-term marriage with him, to deciding that he's a repeat serial killer and is gonna kill her next. was a very quick turnaround. And then coming to that realization and deciding that you have to do something about it, and the only something you can do is kill him, especially where you're going to be the prime suspect for that murder, and you're going to have to somehow like retroactively justify it, doesn't make any sense to me. In some ways, I think it would have made more sense if we found out this was like a possession, a carbon monoxide poisoning, a psychotic break on her part, not his. The story starts so strong by setting us off with her burning the house down with him in it alive, and I was pumped to find out why she did that. For it to unfold that it's like a ghost story, for her to have many other options besides murdering him to escape him, really makes it seem like the story did not earn this very metal, very intense intro / ending of their relationship. And I think the story could have earned this. Like, I would have loved if Nathan had taken her out there to play like a round of the most dangerous game with her, and she like outwits him and murders him in this way so that she can escape with her own life. Like, if he had actively been trying to harm her while they were on this weekend getaway, then her retaliating in this way feels more earned. And I think I might have liked it even with like this supernatural ghost warning her kind of element if we felt the ghost was a little bit more unreliable. Like, maybe she's just pissed off that Nathan is moving on, you know? Maybe she died tragically in a car crash, or she died of cancer or something and expected Nathan to stay single forever. And she's trying to like lead Anna down one path about her being murdered when the truth is she's just like an angry, vengeful ghost. As far as relating this story back to its themes, I do think it does okay on executing the secrets follow them everywhere portion of it. Certainly if Nathan is killing people, then that secret is following him everywhere. But on some ways, it also doesn't work, because it seems like Nathan either kills everyone at this cabin, or for whatever other reason, all of the ghosts are haunting this cabin. So in that regard, his secret murderer secondary lifestyle does not follow him day to day in real world. It just sits and haunts this one location. That he brings people back to it, maybe like in some kind of sick way to see if they'll accept him or like join him in this, you know, is a whole nother story, but it's not actually related to these ghosts following him around everywhere, kind of haunting him, being this larger secret he has to like keep the illusion up with. In fact, if he hadn't brought his new girlfriend to this cabin, he probably could have kept up this ruse a lot longer, and the secrets would have just like remained hidden there in the cabin. I mean, I think in some ways Nathan needs to keep coming back to the cabin because he needs these echoes of his previous deeds, and like to see the ghost trapped here, to like relive that moment of power and triumph and like domination over these other people. Again, that's not the secrets following him. That's some kind of weird, messed up psyche compulsion he has, combined with a confusing supernatural element. Which rolls me into Stockholm by Cathrine Steadman. This is a book about someone trying to fake Stockholm syndrome while they are physically traveling to Stockholm with their husband, who happens to be in charge of their conservatorship. Honestly, I felt like that part was a little bit contrived. What's really interesting about it to me, though, is that this woman was a psychologist before she was put in a conservatorship. So I am really curious what the legal process was. And I think it's really creepy that you would establish someone isn't capable of making adult decisions, doesn't have adult rights, and then you give the power of all of their decisions and control over to their husband, someone who is presumably romantically, intimately involved with them. Feels like a form of extreme control, domestic abuse. All that said, there is a lot of ground to cover in this story. We've got to learn about the conservatorship, we've got to learn about her life before, her life now, and her attempts to break free, as well as this current attempt to escape. We have to learn a little bit about the husband, their relationship, what it was like before conservatorship versus now, how like in a lot of ways conservatorship was a long time coming and a natural progression of some of the dominance games the two of them were playing in the relationship that makes the relationship unhealthy, those sort of consensual boundary pushing and like a little bit mutually toxic, to something where the husband has won and is just like continually dominating and in control, and otherwise like shoving her face in the fact that she's lost like all control of her life forever. You know, I'm a relationship girly. I would have liked to spend more time there talking about how they met, their relationship, the build into this conservatory, how he actually won that court battle, what that changed in their life, all of that like escalation, which you could have easily fleshed out in a novel, but here in a short, just we get little snippets of, and all of that sort of culminates into this trip where they're going to Stockholm, where she thinks this is her best, possibly only chance to escape him and like start a brand new life so that maybe she can finally be free of these constraints. The process of escaping him is possibly the least interesting element of what's going on here, especially because she talks about other times she's tried to escape and how they haven't worked and why. So she more or less sets up like what is going to happen in this premise too. The story itself ends on a cliffhanger after her most recent thwarted escape attempt, where people realize that she's not well and return her to her husband. She's realized the only way out of this is to murder him, and that she could do that successfully without being blamed because she is not capable of making her own decisions or being held responsible for them. If she kills him, she can technically get away with murder just based off of her lack of mental acuity, period. It's just like a sharp fade to black from here with us knowing that that's where this is going. I think I might have preferred if we had gotten the scene where she actually hits him on the head and then has to like watch him bleed out and wonder when or if anyone is ever coming back to this isolated cabin to check on them. Because she does not know how long he plans to stay with her here, and she doesn't know like how many supplies there are, how often people are going to come check on them, all this other kinds of stuff. So like there's a lot of risk with her killing him, and there could still be a hard fade to black with like free of this one thing only for her to die here too. This story makes a reference to The Handmaid's Tale and compares her situation to that of the handmaids in that story. But it's not really reflecting the reality for a large multitude of people the way we would be in The Handmaid's Tale, where like everybody is suffering greatly under this regime. Stockholm doesn't manage any of that, partially because it's only an individual story, which like some of the horror of The Handmaid's Tale is told in an epistolary style from the viewpoint of one specific individual, taking this large system that's kind of like overwhelming to look at and personalizing it. But this is just a personal story, period. It has very little relatability to The Handmaid's Tale, and like referencing it sort of sets this story up in some ways for failure because it just does not do the same things, and comparing the two makes this one come out significantly the lesser of them. As far as the collection's theme, secrets that follow you everywhere, I think it's actually doing a pretty good job fulfilling on that. Because if you look at this woman, she looks perfectly kept together, perfectly competent, people are asking her if she wants things, and she's actually not allowed to make any of these decisions on her own. So she either has to like look at her husband and let him make those calls, or she can try to make those decisions, and that's when the husband reveals the secret that she's not a competent adult to these people. And therefore that changes how they interact with her in like a pretty drastic way. And then it has the extra element of the fact that she actually is a competent adult who's been forcefully put into a conservatory, like, so she should be able to make these decisions and choices, but isn't allowed to, and people are actually working to keep her imprisoned instead of like trying to keep her protected for her own benefit. And of course at the end of the story, where she decides that she's going to attempt to kill her husband, if she does successfully murder him, the fact that she's going to get away with this murder is going to be a secret that follows her through the rest of her life too. Rolling into Belle by Luanne Rice. I already talked about this in my June reading wrap-up, but I really didn't like this one. I feel like this one was poorly written with the excuse that this is supposed to be mysterious with a lot of red herrings in it. They just keep introducing characters, themes, ideas, like different ways for her to go with this. And, you know, most of them are dead ends. And a little bit, it's like,
why are we making this more complicated than we need to be? At its heart, it's a pretty simple story.
Also, this takes place in Newport, Rhode Island, and it's about a woman fighting for her inheritance of a Newport mansion that she was denied via the lawyer who, like, sort of stole it out from under her while her grandma had some kind of dementia situation going on. And it's like,
gross. I don't care about any of these people.
I kind of think, like, she's a pretty thoughtless, terrible character. They're trying to make her, like, innocent and naive and like easily fooled and tricked, overly sheltered kind of deal, but it just comes off like she's a stupid, entitled, privileged, rich bitch. And I kind of think she got what she deserved when she lost out on the inheritance. I don't think necessarily the lawyer deserved to trick grandma out of this stuff. The lawyer's a bad dude too, but like I just don't care about any of these people, you know? The only ones I personally like are the housemaid and the driver. I don't know, maybe this is just like my general disdain for rich people and generational wealth and inheritance as a whole that's really like leaning through, but like,
Are you seriously asking me to be invested in this mystery or this story at all?
and personally, I don't know that the servants, Mary and Jack, like conspiring to take over the house is actually evil or bad. You know, they are the people who are keeping the house in pristine condition. They're the ones doing all the services, making sure that the house is everything it can be. Since they're the ones doing all the work on the house, they deserve to take it over. They have earned it, in my view. Also, I think both Mary and Jack have been humanized enough in the story for me to kind of sort of like them. I know we invented this girl's best friend to complain that Jack was creepy. I know that Grandma was like, oh, let's treat them like family. But then the book goes way out of their way to explain this as like rich people's version of family, which is to say they're treated like family, but then treat them like servants. And like this girl is like,
Oh, I love you and I miss you.
but she didn't even send a Christmas card. Like, I like Mary. I'm on her side. These people are just playing a game, trying to pretend they treat the servants well. Jack is a little red flaggy. He's showing a lot of misogyny, and I didn't like him per se, but I still would root for him over rooting for her. So it's a problem for me when they try to make these servants the overall villain. We come to find out that they have killed the lawyer so they can take over the house and continue to run and maintain it. And they're gonna kill this girl too because she came and like intruded on the mystery and tried to take the house back from them. And the only thing besides Jack's red flaggy misogynistic behavior we get to sort of like make us think these people are gross is that they're a brother-sister combo, and we come to find out that they're in an incestuous relationship. And to me, this is just like the one gothic thing that doesn't work when you're like,
Oh, the servants did it.
and the only way we can make them bad is by making them incest monsters. Like, I feel like you're demonizing the poor. You're trying to force my sympathies with this rich person that I just do not have, and that you have done nothing to engender in me, other than the fact that, like, this is the way society works, and I'm supposed to be with that. Why would I want her to continue her generational wealth? Especially when she is so thoughtless to all the people who do all the work to like maintain these things. Like in some ways, I even think the lawyer had earned the house more than she did. Like she found out her grandma's mind was slipping and she didn't spend any more time with grandma. She let the lawyer take care of her day to day and give her reports. And since I know she was financially stable, she could have been spending that time with grandma. She could have been ensuring that no one was messing with that money, messing with that house, whatever it is that mattered to her. That's not what she valued. She didn't value grandma, but for some reason she values this house so much. She doesn't value the servants, except she wants them to be there and she wants them to be thankful that she values them so much. The servants are secretly plotting against me and are evil is something that made sense when Goth originally came into play. You know, the creepy servant who might secretly poison you or whatever. But I think we have upended the class system enough at this point in time. Enough of us readers are actually probably part of the servant class in some way, shape, or form. That continuing to demonize these people and then just throw in like a sloppy, they're incestuous and that's why they're evil kind of narrative is not gonna work. Nor should it work. This is part of Gothic literature that I feel like has probably aged poorly. It works when it's an old story in its time frame because you can look at it like that, but taking this and putting it into a modern context, I just think shows you don't understand what Gothic literature is, shows you don't really understand the otherness, the outcast, the full exploration that's supposed to be going on in that kind of work. Which rolls me into the collection's theme. This one does not fit at all. I don't think that secrets are following this girl everywhere. I think she's too stupid to live. If we're gonna be totally honest, I don't even think that there's anything actually secret. I think what's going on is pretty obvious from the jump. To me, this was a very weak addition to the collection, and had I been the curator, I would have rejected it for publication. It completely misses the mark when it comes to connecting with the average reader. We have privileged characters that are incredibly off-putting. One wonders why we should allow this shallow level of misfortune with like a twist reveal of something gross to be just the acceptable standard for a thriller. Catcher in a Lie by Jess Lourey. There is a really surprising element of both serial killers and supernatural in this collection. Like I expected 0 supernatural and here we are at like 2.0. Jess Lourey's take on the supernatural though is way better than his happy place. For starters, we start with someone who has like some kind of intuition, dream knowledge, which is like a more acceptable, slow, more subtle kind of form of supernatural. And we learn that her powers are born out of trauma, which again is like,
okay, so not everyone has this. I'm on page with you. I get it. All of this makes sense and continues to feel real and grounded.
I also prefer the portrayal of the serial killer element here versus his happy place. And the whole thing is like a more satisfying loop because I know who killed the men, I know why they were killed, what connects them, all that kind of stuff by the end of the story. Where at the end of his happy place, there are quite a few dangling plot threads about why he killed his wife, why he killed his dad, who these people were in his life. I don't know, part of what is interesting about a serial killer story to me is like collecting a profile on the killer and a profile on their victims, and we just can't necessarily do that with his happy place, where you can do that here in Catcher in a Lie. And despite my issues with propaganda, I do like a good crime procedural. I just can't help myself. There's like a very specific kind of structure to it and predictability that makes it an enjoyable formula to sort of fill out and watch unfold. To be fair to Lourey's take here, the cops don't end up catching the serial killer. The pro here is they don't take this mother-daughter combo and like pin a crime on them once they find out there's not really any connecting evidence. And then the con here, sort of implying the police are incompetent and not that great, is that they don't catch the serial killer, have no more leads on him, and are probably not even going to investigate the case further. The other way this is not propaganda is one of the police officers who's here doing the investigation is also actually the person who killed all three of these folks. And while murdering people is quite common for the police, pointing it out in this way, them taking the law into their own hands and actually being the criminal they've been sent out to capture, is not quite so normal in storytelling. I also really liked the mother-daughter combo. I liked the explanation of who Patty was, what she was like, why protecting her was so important, and took more specialized consideration than you might normally consider for like a 14-year-old girl. I also like the explanation of why this specific cop is interested in the mother, because she caught her killing her husband, and like, why didn't she report that to the police? How long did she know about the situation going on with her daughter? What was she going to do from there? There's a lot of questions. There's some morally gray things going on there that make us like more likely to accept this serial killer than we otherwise would be. As far as the story collection's themes go, this is Journey Forward, where the mother and daughter were leaving the country for another southern location, and the secrets of who had killed the husband / father were following them. I think the characterizations and individual quirks of everyone in the story was great. It makes you feel invested and interested in everyone, and like all of them are holding back some information that could be crucial to this story or to stories down the line. I did like the cop duo enough that I would read more from them, and was not super surprised when I did a little research and it looks like Lourey has written like this duo going on other cases. I think I would be interested to read those just based off of this little taste right here. Even if overall character-wise I really preferred the mother-daughter combo, I sort of recognize for them this is an isolated moment in their life that becomes an interesting story. I don't know what kind of story could go on for them after this. Shell Game by Rumaan. I hated this story. I felt like it was something that was attempting to be artsy but came off as incredibly shallow and pretentious. There is no plot, and really not a lot of character either here, so I'm not even 100% sure what this was. Also, I just found myself like infinitely confused. We're following this main character, Mark, and his wife who wants to spend time with her brother, and her brother are twins, so like she feels like they have a special connection, a special way of communicating, they have to be together. But Mark doesn't like her twin. So for me, the first thing is, why did Mark marry this woman? If she wants to spend time with her twin and you don't like the twin, what is going on? It feels like either you're stupid as fuck or you're just lying to me and they don't spend that much time together. Which I think it's the latter, because Mark has a job that like forced them to move across the country from the twin. And that says to me like maybe they do have a special twin bond, maybe they don't, but they're not really that close. They don't really hang out that much. That's not something they prioritize to such a degree that this woman stopped this from happening. You know, her twin is mentally unwell and has been in and out of jail and it looks like psychiatric facilities before. He's out of work right now, he has young kids, and he's not really helping with the childcare or helping with the finances. So I'm not saying this guy has to like the brother, but it's awkward. Like, all of it's just very awkward. I don't know what we're getting at. I don't know what the point of this is, you know? And then we close where we find out that this brother has killed himself, and he goes from seeing these kids as like a baby and a toddler to teens at this funeral, which also like means they don't interact or meet that often. This vacation was weird because there's a lot of unspoken things in families, period. But like, him and his wife have especially poor communication. It's not so much that there are secrets as it is that they don't talk. Mark himself is a very off-putting character because it seems like there's some kind of homoerotic something going on that he's in denial about. Whatever is going on with that element is fine, I guess, but it's very awkwardly shoved into the narrative in a way that felt unnatural, felt like an extra element, in some ways felt like homophobic, either on Mark's part or on the part of the author, how they described it. I am not comfortable saying who was homophobic there, but it didn't feel good. Let's put it that way. It did not feel sex positive. It made me kind of side-eye Mark and be more on Jeff's side, just based off of that alone. His wife is like crying directly after they have intimacy, which again made me side-eye Mark. Like, is he an abusive piece of shit? Is that why their communication's broken down so much? Is she crying over something that's unrelated and this is just like a release? Like, again, this is so much about poor communication, not secrets. Which I guess rolls into the theme here. Tentatively, I guess maybe I really didn't understand this story and there were a lot of secrets involved, but from my perspective, it's just a bunch of people who are dysfunctional and not communicating. They're not honest with themselves, they're not honest with those around them, they're not having those long actual conversations they need to have. And maybe they can't, maybe at this juncture where we're at the vacation with so many young children, they don't know each other well enough, they're so tired and busy taking care of the kids, they don't have time, but they also never make time either. Which I realize is not the point of this specific vacation. We could have got a flash forward to like down the road or a flashback to beforehand, like something. I really feel like whatever this secret twin bond is, special twin relationship is, Mark should have had more questions or wanted more insight into it, especially if he doesn't like the twin brother, especially as he finds out the twin brother is like kind of unhinged. You know, it's one thing for siblings to be close. It's another thing entirely for siblings to be close and for one of them to obviously be struggling. Even if your partner just wants to use you as a sounding board to talk that information out, you guys should sort of be talking about that relationship, what that relationship means to them, what this like unraveling means to them too. I think especially maybe in a twin situation where maybe you'd be concerned that like you also have some kind of genetic, mental upheaval that could happen to you too. This would have heavy impact in you, not just because of your relationship with that person, but potentially because of the implications that might have for you. You know, I'm all for watching people who are dysfunctional be dysfunctional, like more or less at the whole premise of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and that's like a classic for a reason. But if people are just dysfunctional and there's no point and there's nothing that's like humanizing or connecting about it, there's never any voice of reason or strong narrative, it becomes very frustrating very fast. Honestly, that made this a very disappointing note to leave the collection off of, because I'd say overall it's pretty strong, especially if you're just looking for fun summer getaway kind of reads. And then you get to this one and you're like, what the hell did I just read? So that's gonna be my takeaway on the Getaway collection. If you are looking for some kind of fun travel audiobooks, this could be for you. I just wouldn't read the last one. But talk to me in those comments down below. Have you read anything by Sally Hepworth or Jess Lourey? And if so, what would you recommend? And as always, keep reading.